When the HOA president told me my grass was too tall, I thought it was just another nitpicky complaint. But when they fined me and threatened legal action, I decided to turn their demand into the biggest embarrassment of their lives. Instead of cutting my lawn short, I transformed it into a breathtaking wildflower meadow that attracted attention from the entire county, and the HOA never saw what came next. Backhand index pointing right. If you enjoy stories where HOA bullies get exactly what they deserve, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next one. When I had lived in our neighborhood for nearly 8 years without a single issue. My house sat on a corner lot, and my backyard sloped into a little patch of woods. I kept my lawn neat, never perfect, but respectable. Then, about 2 years ago, we elected a new HOA president, Margaret, or as everyone called her, Clipboard Karen. Karen wasn't the kind of person who asked questions or listened to reason. She barked orders like she was a drill sergeant. Within 3 weeks of her taking over, I received my first notice: your grass exceeds the allowable limit of 3.5 inches. Please mow immediately or face a $50 fine. I laughed at first. My grass was maybe 4 inches high. But I shrugged, mowed, and went on with my day. A week later, another letter arrived. Then another. It became a cycle. Karen scrutinized my lawn like it was a military parade ground. One Saturday, she showed up at my door, clipboard in hand, wagging her finger like I was a teenager past curfew. Your yard looks sloppy. The HOA guidelines are very clear, she scolded. It's grass, I replied, biting back my annoyance. It grows. That's what it does. Karen's eyes narrowed. If you don't comply, we'll escalate this. The HOA will pursue legal remedies. That was the moment I decided, if Karen wanted a battle over my lawn, I was going to make it one she'd regret starting. Instead of mowing, I began researching. I discovered that state law encouraged native plant landscaping to support pollinators and wildlife. In fact, there were even grants available for homeowners who planted wildflowers instead of grass. My yard wasn't going to be a lawn anymore. It was going to be a sanctuary. I tore out the grass in my front yard and planted seeds: milkweed, coneflowers, black-eyed Susans, bee balm, and even blue lupin. I added a small sign near the mailbox: pollinator habitat, protected by state law. At first, it looked like dirt. Karen smirked every time she passed by, convinced I was giving up. But within weeks, green shoots sprouted, then color, then whole waves of blossoms. Butterflies, hummingbirds, and bees swarmed my yard. Neighbors slowed their cars to stare. Kids took pictures. Strangers came by just to ask how I'd done it. And Karen? She was livid. She sent fines. She called emergency meetings. She stormed onto my property, pointing at the flowers and shouting, "This isn't a yard. This is a weed patch." What she didn't realize was that I had documented everything. Every fine, every email, every photo. And I had a powerful ace up my sleeve that was about to turn the entire neighborhood against her. The first week after the letter arrived from the Environmental Board, the HOA boardroom was uncharacteristically silent. Usually, I'd hear chatter, the scraping of chairs, and smug laughter when I passed by. But this time, no sound filtered through the closed doors. When they finally emerged, their faces were pale, their tight smiles brittle. The Wildflower Meadow had done what my neatly cut lawn never could: it turned public opinion against them. Neighbors who once feared speaking up now openly waved at me, praising the colors of my yard and telling me how it made their morning walks brighter. Parents brought their kids to take photos, and local photographers stopped by to capture the bees, butterflies, and swaying blossoms. But the HOA wasn't done. They doubled down, filing a community aesthetic violation and trying to fine me $200 a week for every day my meadow remained out of regulation. When the notice arrived, I actually laughed. Not only was the fine unenforceable, it directly contradicted the official exemption I now had. Still, they pushed harder. One evening, I came home to find 3 board members standing at the edge of my property, phones out, taking pictures as though they were gathering evidence. I stepped outside with a cup of tea in my hand and said calmly, make sure you get my good side, this one's going in the papers." They glared at me, but the truth was, they were already losing. A few weeks later, the environmental board invited me to speak at a town hall. They wanted me to share how residents could turn their lawns into eco-friendly spaces. I stood at the podium, my voice shaking at first but growing steadier as I saw supportive faces in the crowd. "I planted a meadow because I was tired of fighting nature to please a rulebook written decades ago," I explained. "Now, my yard supports pollinators, reduces water waste, and brings joy to my neighbors. Isn't that what a community should celebrate?" The applause was deafening. Reporters snapped photos, and by the next morning, my story was everywhere, from local TV to the front page of the county newspaper. The HOA's name was splashed across headlines, portrayed as the villain harassing a homeowner for protecting the environment. Suddenly, they weren't just battling me, they were battling public opinion. And that was a war they couldn't win. At the next HOA meeting, dozens of neighbors packed the room. One by one, they spoke up, not just in my defense, but against years of petty fines, intimidation, and unnecessary rules. An older woman stood up and said, "You fined me $50 because my recycling bin wasn't pulled in by noon. Enough is enough." Another shouted, "You told my son he couldn't play basketball in our own driveway. Why do we even pay dues to people who hate joy?" The board sat frozen, their authority crumbling. Within 2 weeks, a recall petition circulated, gathering more than enough signatures. By the end of the month, the entire board was ousted, replaced by neighbors who actually cared about the community. And the meadow? It stayed. In fact, the new board passed a resolution encouraging more eco-friendly lawns. My little act of defiance had sparked a movement. This morning, as I sipped coffee on my porch, I watched bees dancing from bloom to bloom while kids chased butterflies through the grass. A neighbor waved, holding a small packet of wildflower seeds. "Thought I'd join you," he said with a grin. I smiled, realizing that what started as revenge had grown into something bigger, a symbol of resilience, of beauty, and of what happens when you refuse to bow to unreasonable power. The HOA wanted to mow me down. Instead, I grew taller, brighter, and stronger than ever.